Hello, I'm John Barton, and thanks for joining me for another edition of Business Week this Sunday night. And one of Australia's top businesswomen, now she's given the opportunity to pass on her expertise to others. A woman who tomorrow will be named head of the New South Wales Small Business Development Corporation.
How do you react to your appointment?
With pleasure, and I'm flattered, but it's a little bit daunting too, because running a small business takes every bit of time. There's no such thing as 9 to 5.
Barbara Cail. Her credentials for the new job include the founding of a publishing empire with $1 million turnover every year.
I feel I've got a fairly intimate knowledge of what it takes to run a small business, having run one for so long.
Barbara Cail, taking care of business in a special profile on the eve of her new appointment. Barbara Cail founded Portfolio magazine, a glossy publication aimed at promoting women doing well in business. Barbara might well have put herself on the cover, as she did with many other successful women, because her talents have brought her to the attention of those determined to promote small business in this country. And that includes the New South Wales State Government. And tomorrow it'll be announced that Barbara Cail is the new chairperson of the state's Small Business Development Corporation. Running your own successful business is one thing. Helping others to run theirs is another thing entirely. But Barbara Cail, far from being daunted, is ready, willing and able to accept the challenge.
If the key elements of success are application, an ability to read the market and a will to win, Barbara Cail has all of them. At 48, this self-made woman is still on the way up. From virtually nothing, she's built her company, Rala Publications, into $1 million a year business. Today, with a stable of a dozen trade magazines, books and other journals, with more on the way. The glossy Portfolio, a national magazine for working women, was Barbara Cail's baby until she was bought out by Fairfax. It, replaced by other ventures in trade exhibiting and marketing, stretching across Australia into Southeast Asia. New South Wales Small Business Development Corporation, its new chairman, is quite a find.
I feel I've got a fairly intimate knowledge of what it takes to run a small business, having run one for so long. And that, combined with the fact that I am involved in the information process, my profession is information, I try to combine both, and I feel in that area I do have something to contribute.
How do you react to your appointment?
With pleasure, and I'm flattered, but it's a little bit daunting too, because running a small business takes every bit of time. There's no such thing as 9 to 5 and 5 days a week. No 4 weeks annual leave with 17.5% loading, unfortunately. So it's a matter of having to really be totally committed on an all-time basis. I formally start by, first of all, introducing very briefly Noel Crichton and Leslie Farkash, who are joining us today for the first time.
With its primary role to advise the New South Wales Government on small business policy, the corporation represents a cross-section of business, academic and trade union interests. Not that small in business terms means insignificant by any stretch. Nationally, these people represent more than 60% of private sector employment, creating more than half the country's total profit. When Barbara Cail took over the chairmanship of the corporation from John Lance last Friday afternoon, it gained a leader who doesn't need convincing about the growing importance of small business.
Well, already it is the vital part of the Australian economy. I know that's a fairly biased statement, but with there being 780,000 small businesses throughout Australia, they are the biggest employer and they are the biggest generator of wealth. But we have got a little problem, because what I alluded to earlier is this new federal situation whereby the fringe benefit tax was introduced, as well as the capital gains tax. And that, coupled with the high percentage rate on borrowings, those three elements really preclude an enormous growth rate for the small business person.
What are your thoughts, for example, on the corporate tax rate of 49%?
Why in the hell should I have a silent partner in my business that takes 49 cents of every dollar I make? And when I possibly experience a downturn as a small business person and have massive debts and maybe have to borrow, I don't get 49 cents back to help me through it. Right? I've got a silent partner that takes but doesn't give.
So would you see your role in the corporation as perhaps one of trying to convince the state government to place pressure on the federal government in these vital areas?
I think there would be a space for that, certainly. We concentrate mainly on what the state government can in fact do and what they can implement through their legislation and their charter, of course. But obviously, the spillover effects and the applications of what the federal government does affect everybody in this state as well.
I think it'll be a bit too late for this issue because we're just about to run some material now.
7 years ago, Adrian Farrow was earning $30,000 a year working for someone else. Today, his company Westwick Farrow Proprietary Limited is turning over nearly $1.5 million a year, publishing a range of trade magazines like these, as well as being involved in trade promotions. Barbara Cail was the catalyst, encouraging him to make the break into small business, as well as providing practical support.
Well, I think she's a real dynamo, and hopefully if those dynamics are not blunted by that job, that she'll really bring something worthwhile into it. She knows an awful lot of people in the small business area, and she knows their problems because she's been there and done it herself, and I think that's really going to be vital in that job. If you were a university academic coming into the job, I think you're wasting your time. Because she's been and done it, I think that'll be really worthwhile.
Formerly a metallurgist with Australian Iron and Steel, Barry Smith made the break after a heart bypass operation, successfully publishing Heart Attack and Back, as well as on the way to establishing his own metallurgical research and development company.
If you asked me one word to describe Barbara, I would say it was impressive. I think she's also very capable. The fact that she can run something like 12 trade journals is certainly a plus for any woman.
Now having to split her time between running her own business interests and regular visits to government departments, Barbara Cail is well aware of the dangers of getting tangled up in bureaucracy and red tape.
Certainly, absolutely. I mean, it's traditional. We all blame the government and say the government bureaucracy, and it does exist. But now I have diluted that particular feeling about being totally with government. Fundamentally, when you look at large organisations, a massive amount of bureaucracy is there too. And I find it extraordinary, the amount of managers in large organisations who literally are on the corporate dole. They put their hand out at the end of the month and collect a salary, and their productivity level is exceedingly low. So we really can't just blame government for bureaucracy. We all need to lift our game. But small business people do it well.
Tangible evidence of the value of the Small Business Development Corporation. On its recommendation, the New South Wales Government is establishing a network of centres like these across the state to help new ventures and entrepreneurs get started, as well as those in trouble.
Well, Tony, what we have here is a computerised self-assessment program.
And with up to 85% of new businesses failing within 5 years, mostly through management problems, material like this and the centre's trained counselling staff are certainly worth consideration. You don't need me to tell you that small businesses and the people who run them don't always see eye to eye with governments, Labor governments in particular. For many small businessmen, the very idea of coming to a government instrumentality for advice, funding or assistance is foreign, to say the least. Past performances aside though, it is clear that in New South Wales at least, there has been an increased government commitment to this vital sector of the national economy. Now those who choose to ignore this fundamental shift in government priorities may well do so at their own cost.
There are small business people, there are a particular personality who say, well, you know, how can somebody in government tell us how to create business and create dollars? That's a fairly negative way of looking at it, because what we're doing is looking for a win-win situation. And amazingly enough, if you do some homework, you find a tremendous amount of successful small businesses in this state and in others are actually underpinned by the government help at the very beginning, some sort of grant, a loan, but certainly help. And it's there, so it's silly not to take advantage of it.
A political minefield at the best of times, small business has become even more volatile and aggressive of late as the power base for the new right. Depressed economic conditions, spiralling tax bills and interest rates have given them plenty to say about Labor's federal and state economic policies. Caught between these divergent philosophies is Barbara Cail.
I think I can say quite definitely that I'm very much in the middle. I can take slices out of the Liberal politics and I can take slices out of the Labor and feel comfortable with both. I believe that I not only speak for myself, but I speak for a lot of people.
How do you react to this perception of small business being the foundation of the new right in Australia?
They have in many instances when they do rally and put forward their points. Certainly some of them are extremely valid. But as in all situations, that particular thrust does attract a fairly predictable view. I don't believe that it's based on objective reasoning in many instances. I believe it is based on emotion. And I think if we think it through, it doesn't really stand up to the test of in-depth analysis.
Regardless of your own politics, do you find yourself perhaps walking a tightrope between what you'd like to say and what you can say?
In a short answer, yes. I'm very sensitive to where I am because I am also involved with the Australian Small Business Association, and they have a particular view. The government has a view. I, as a small business operator, have a view, and to blend all three of them is sometimes difficult.
Back at Rala Publications, she's busy working on her latest venture, Top Management Focus, a weekly journal of highly compressed information for people in business who haven't the time to read all they should. Like most of Barbara Cail's ventures, she's planning to do well out of it. But for this woman at least, there's a lot more to life than simply getting rich.
I do think that one has to be fairly happy with who you are as a human being, and you have to go on a discovery tour to find out what that is. And I find as I'm getting older that that's more important. And I feel that the balance in one's life is absolutely essential. And I feel a bit sorry for the people who go through life and think that the only focus is to measure their success in terms of dollars. And if you happen to share a meal with them on some occasions, they're exceedingly dull because they haven't got a range of subject matter at all. It is simply only dollars, and I find that a bit tedious.
Barbara Cail, officially to be recognised as New South Wales' most successful businesswoman tomorrow, when she's named to head up the government's Small Business Development Corporation. Next on Business Week, more on the never-ending saga of Gary Carter's Unity Corporation from Brian Frith.